Jimmy Carter was the 39th President of the United States and served in office from 1977 to 1981. Carter attended Georgia Southwestern State University, Georgia Institute of Technology, Union College, and the United States Naval Academy, where he was a full lieutenant. He also worked on his family farm called Carter Farms and was a peanut farmer. Before his presidency, he was in the Georgia House and became the governor of Georgia. He was also the only president to live in subsidized public housing. During Carter's presidency, the government was at a very low point. His administration had very high hopes to improve the government, but not all of them were achieved. One major law that he signed was the Chrysler Corporation Loan Guarantee Act of 1979 that bailed out the Chrysler Corporation, helped out their company, and many other companies as well. As chief legislator, Carter focused on what a lot of the people of the United States wanted, and his agenda contained concerns of the people. He did a good job as legislator, maybe a B+. It may not have been a perfect presidency with the ties of Congress, but he did well and signed laws to help the greater good of America. Carter became president as our country was emerging from a recession. There were high unemployment rates, high inflation, the cost of energy was rising, and there was an oil crisis. He wanted to cure from the oil embargo, and he decreased foreign oil consumption by 8% and developed a huge emergency store of oil and natural gas for our country. Though he did this, the Iranian Revolution masked his achievement. In 1979, Carter deregulated the American beer industry to increase home brewing. Although he increased employment, the inflation rate during his presidency also increased by nearly 8%. Carter had a lot on his plate during his presidency. As guardian of the economy, he wasn't very successful, and I'd say he deserves a C work, but some of it wasn't his choice. He did improve unemployment, but inflation got worse. He came into office when the economy wasn't bad, but didn't dramatically improve it at all either. Chief diplomat. In the Iranian hostage crisis, Carter remained in isolation. He underwent Operation Eagle Claw to free the hostages, but that was a failed mission. In North Korea, he was a secret recruit for a peace mission, an agreed framework for agreement to freeze a nuclear program. He successfully secured release of a U.S. citizen in North Korea in 2008. In the Middle East, Carter helped design a model agreement for an Israeli and Palestinian peace agreement. He was a critic of Israeli policies in Lebanon. Carter also addressed violence in the Great Lakes in Africa and negotiated agreements between Sudan and Uganda. Carter dealt a lot with foreign affairs, but a lot of it was post being in office. He deserves a B+ because of the efforts he put in after his presidency, as well as during his presidency when it comes to being chief diplomat and having good ties with other countries, and helping other countries with their agreements and peace treaties. As Commander-in-Chief, Carter helped with foreign treaties in places such as Africa and the Middle East. He was a former naval officer, so he had experience and still had connections in the armed forces. In the Navy, he graduated 59th out of 820 shipmen in the Naval Academy, so he was a very prestigious and experienced naval officer. He didn't really use much military use except for in Iran, but he did increase military spending. I would probably give Carter an A- for being Commander-in-Chief. He was a distinguished naval officer and was very experienced. Though he didn't use much military force very often, he still held his connections as he needed and use them when he needed them. Head of state. Carter was a people person, keeping the citizens involved. In his presidency, it was a time of crisis, but he kept calm and was caring about the citizens in America. It was said that people liked him more as a person than as a president, because many things in his presidency failed, but they still liked his person and his personality. As the president, he had a large disapproval rating, and his public opinions fluctuated up and down. His post-presidency is largely favorable by the public. Because of all his failed presidency, they looked at everything he did after the presidency as very good. Many of his plans failed, and he increased jobs, but he didn't do much as a president. His public opinions in his presidency were down, but the public opinion after his presidency went up and greatly fluctuated throughout his presidency with the Iranian hostage crisis and much more. I think Carter deserves a C for his head of state work. Many people liked him, but as a person, his duties as the president many times failed. I don't think it was a complete failure because the people still liked him enough as a person to give him good ratings, but the things he did as president were bad enough to give him bad ratings. Chief of Party. Carter ran on the Democratic ticket and held very many Democratic ideologies. His ideologies matched up with humanitarianism and environmentalism. Many people said that he split the Democratic Party. During his presidency, the Democratic Party gained congressional seats, but his critics said that as he balanced the budget, he cut a social assistance program, which strayed away from the Democratic ideologies. He wanted to change society for the better, but many of his critics said that he was too conservative. Carter deserves a B+ when it comes to Chief of Party. Although people said he was too conservative, he stuck to Democratic values a lot. And I don't think a president should be completely one-sided, and they should be middle-grounded and centralized when they have to deal with everyone in the government. Chief Executive. As Chief Executive, Carter was seen as very much a people person. People said he was honest, compassionate, sincere, and caring. He focused a lot on the environment in the United States and human rights in and out of the United States. He focused a lot also on health insurance and education for those who couldn't afford it. He also focused on deregulation of transportation to make it a private matter. It seemed like he wanted to expand social welfare. Though to the people, he was very open and honest. There was a lot of scandals in his cabinet, such as illegal payoffs of certain laws and bills, and also drugs in the White House. He didn't really get along with the Senate, as he appointed many people in his cabinet that weren't approved by them. So, in the Senate, he didn't really get along with them. But for the people, he did a good job. I think Carter deserves a B+ as chief executive. He related to the people's needs and wants and really tried to change society for the better. Although many of his administration's plans failed, they gave a good effort. Within the government, he didn't have the best light and didn't have a great relationship with the Senate, but to the people, they saw him as caring because he really tried to help them out. I would give Carter a solid B for his presidency as a whole. A lot of things in his presidency were seen as a failure, but he wasn't a president in such a hard time in the government and in the economy. I don't think many other people could have done any better than he did. He did well considering the circumstances that he was put in. He was also one of the people that related to citizens as a whole, the farmers, and even the lower class. I don't think Carter did a terrible job, because his post-presidency was good too. Many of his plans may have failed, but he was a good people person that really cared about the people in his country.